Thank you for coming today to the last lecture. The last lecture is a tradition that dates back to the beginnings of Harvard University. It's been around for hundreds of years. It's an opportunity for faculty as they're leaving their institution to leave and impart some words of wisdom before they go. And we're so pleased that Professor Ferguson agreed to deliver a last lecture today. So I'll introduce him now. George has taught at JCCC in the business division for almost 11 years and has taught in higher ed and corporate settings since before the pyramids were built. He worked for major companies including Hallmark Cards, Marion Labs, and owned his own training and consulting firm for 20 years. Still a long-haired hippie freak, incognito, of course. In his early years, he played in rock bands and was an FM radio rock star DJ, spinning hits and interviewing such stars as Frank Zappa, Jeff Lynne, the Electric Light Orchestra, Robbie Robertson, the band, Michelle Phillips, the Dixie Dregs, and the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. I didn't know all that, but... So please welcome George Ferguson as he shares his...
Thank you very much. When Megan Doyle approached me and asked me to do this, my first response was, nobody wants to hear some bald-headed fool pontificate about how great the golden days were or anything like that. And then I thought about it. You know, I spent some decades abusing and torturing students. And I finally had the opportunity to do that to faculty and staff. I couldn't pass it up. So, what we're going to be doing today is talking about, we can get this off of here, get this up. "15 learnings over 38 years of training and education." Okay? Now, a lot of you may not know much about my background or anything like that. In 1979, I'd finished undergraduate school. I was working for a bank in Atlanta, and I met a guy from Hallmark. And so he took pity upon my pregnant wife and me and moved us up here to Kansas City. So started at Hallmark. I spent 9 years at Hallmark. Moved over to Marion Labs, spent 12 years there. When the company and its various iterations through mergers and acquisitions and things like that decided to move to New Jersey, my wife and I looked at each other and we said, we ain't going to Jersey, all right? We grew up in Philly, all right? So we knew what Jersey was like, so no, we didn't. So I took a package, went into business for myself, did that for 20 years. And then 5 years ago, Leroy took pity upon me and hired me back in full time. So in 1985, I was finishing up my MBA at Rockhurst College. It was college then, before the university. Finishing up my MBA, and the professor that I had for my last class, Merle Fry, I'll never forget it, was the management chair. And so I went to her and I said, Merle, I'd love to be able to teach an undergraduate course or something like that. And he said in so many words, you start in January. Okay. So that's when I started my second career as far as training, as far as education. I'd done some training, corporate training, things like that before. And so I had started my career in education back in 1986 at Rockhurst University. I was at Rockhurst until 2000 as an adjunct, about 5 years or so in there full time as a visiting assistant. And also during that time, I was also teaching online courses for Bellevue University and their Master's in Healthcare Administration program, and then also Old Dominion University in their undergrads program. So I have quite a bit of background and things like that. So what I'm going to do today is regale you with some of my learnings and things that were important to me and some tips and that sort of thing. We don't want this to be just a one-way type thing. If you have questions, please ask. And the main thing I'm looking for are the smart-ass remarks. If I don't get a few smart-ass remarks at some point during this time, I'm going to be really disappointed, okay? David, can I count on you? Crystal? All right. Leroy, can I count on you for... All right, let's go. All right, you'll try. All right, so that's kind of where we're at. So what we're going to do is I'm going to share some of that stuff with you as far as some of the things that I've learned and I think are important. I'm a planner. I'm one of those people who tries to plan and get things done as much as possible, as soon as possible. I learned a long time ago. All of my education was done part-time. Under my undergrad, my master's, my doctoral work, and things like that, it was all part-time, where I had a full-time job, I had a part-time job, and then a lot of that time I also had a family. And so it took me longer and things like that, but I learned that I can't put things off until the last minute, because otherwise I'm really in a bind. And so when Leroy lets me know what classes I'm allowed to teach, I'm immediately starting to put those things together. I'm putting stuff into Canvas shell. I'm putting together my syllabi, and I send my syllabi over to Mary Hanover for a quality check, and she sends it back. Okay, well, these links need to be fixed. So I fix the links. I send them back to her. She sends it back, saying, Ed Affairs wants these changes here. Okay, make the changes, I send it back to her. She sends it back saying, well, the dean wants these changes here. We go through what, about six or seven iterations?
3.5 months before everybody else.
The thing is, when that semester starts, that Canvas shell in my class is ready to go. It's been ready to go for several weeks. Students know exactly what it is that they're going to be doing, on what day, what's due, and that sort of thing. Everything is just jam up, jelly tight. So I learned a long time ago, do not put things off to the last. I'm a firm believer that the one thing that was given to us as human beings, well, besides the opposing thumb, was free will. I firmly believe that absolutely nobody has power over me. Everything that I do is a choice that I make. Now, I may not like some of the choices. The thing is, it's a choice. I can do A. And if I do A, here's the impacts and outcomes. Or I can do B. Here's the impacts and outcomes. Which impacts and outcomes do I like the best? And then I choose. And that's one of the things that I really push as far as the students are concerned. Students, I have no power over you. I cannot make you take a test. I can't make you write a paper. I can't make you come to class. All I can do is set the expectations and then let you choose. All I do is follow through on the expectations and the outcomes. And so I'm a firm believer of that whole idea of everything being a choice. Now, I've also had those students, have you had those students who come to you and say, why did you give me that grade? You had one of those? And it's one of those things where I say, man, I'll give you nothing, okay? Those are things that you earn. Are you concerned about the grade that you got? Then what you do is you go back and you look at that rubric, and you look to see what that rubric says and what it is that you did. You can see that you did not do what was expected for an A. So that whole idea of holding people accountable and grades are earned and not given. Oh, by the way, I do not accept late work. Don't accept late work. No redos on exams or anything like that. I might consider it if there's arterial bleeding, a CV issue, or something like that. I might consider it. The thing is, when you're in business and you make a commitment to a customer that you're going to have something done by a particular date, you make that date. I'm trying to get that across to these students. So the second tip. Anybody ever had any problems with the testing center? Some years ago, I had a student who had accommodations, had to have all the exams at the testing center. And being the planner, I had the test there at the beginning of the week, test at the end of the week, have it there in plenty of time. On Friday, I get an email from the student saying the test wasn't there. The testing center said the test wasn't there. So I go marching down to the testing center, Yeah, what's going on? It's not here. We don't have it. It wasn't checked in. The testing center director and I went a few rounds that day, and I haven't used them since. Several years ago, I had a class that was in that one of the library classrooms. It was, I can't remember where it was at. If you ask me to find it today, there's no way, because it was off of a hallway, a deserted hallway someplace. It was a little classroom, absolutely no circulation, in there. It was hot, crowded, the students are, the tables, and they're all facing this way and everything. And one day there was a student who was sitting on the side of a table, kind of facing the door. And she said, could we close the door? I said, no, it is hot in here. Let's try to get as much air in here as possible. A couple days later, the next class, police chief comes by, calls me out, says, did a student ask you about closing the door? I said, yeah. Why didn't you? Well, because it was hot. We're trying to get air in there and that sort of thing. He said, he shows me a couple of pictures that came off security cameras. He said, do you know this student? No, I've never seen him before. That student was in that hallway, had dropped trowel, and was flashing the student. I was mortified, absolutely mortified. I told the police chief, if I had known, I would have been out of that room in a flash. I would have been all over him like stink on poop. But I so want to protect the students that we have, because something like that should not happen. And so do everything we can to protect our students. Have you ever had any of those students who just kind of disappear? Okay, they're just kind of gone. The online students happens all the time. They don't bother to log in. They don't do anything, things like that. This semester I had 3 in one class. All right, and they go on ground classes. And you talk to them, when they come to class, okay? And you send them emails and you send the academic alerts and things like that. And there's several of them. I said, you got to the point now where you cannot earn enough points to pass class. Now you have a choice. You can continue what you're doing. You're not doing much of the work. You just come to class once in a while. All right, you continue to do that. You might get something out of it, who knows? Or you can hit the road. Okay, you can go ahead and go withdraw from the class. And so I had a couple who went ahead and withdrew. I had a couple who still just kind of disappeared, didn't do anything. The thing is, you have to level them. You have to let them know. You can't, you're not going to be able to pass. You're going to have to do something about that. Some years ago, when I was at the pharmaceutical company, I was responsible for North America leadership development. And one of the things we had was a 6-month-long leadership development process. It was targeted to managers and senior individual contributors getting ready for the director level. It was 6 months long, 2 days a month for 6 months. They had homework in between, things like that. I had one student in there, he was a senior scientist, who would come in and bitch and complain about his boss and about the department and about the company constantly. And about the 3rd session, he starts on that. And I see the eye rolls from the other participants. I said, dude. Yeah, I called him dude. Dude, you have 3 choices. 1, work positively within the system for change. Now think about that. Positively within the system for change. 2, if you choose not to do 1, step back and smile because you have chosen not to do anything about it. 3, leave. Those are your 3 choices. Pick one. We don't want to hear your whining and sniveling anymore. Here's my class lists. He's gone. So sometimes you just have to level with students. Some years ago, I was at Rockhurst. I got a call from the dean. We were halfway through a 16-week semester, 8 weeks in. Get a call from the dean saying, hey, could you take over this one MBA class? And I said, why? He said, well, it was 8 weeks in. This guy was a first-time adjunct, first time he had taught, okay, and they just hired him in. And he had gotten through chapter 1. All he had done was talk about his airplane consulting business. The students were ready to riot, okay? It was like, okay, so they fired the guy. So the first night when I'm about to go in, I stopped by the men's room, and I'm finishing up in there, and a couple of guys come in. They saw me. It was a small restaurant. Saw me, and they're talking. They didn't know me. They're talking, and one of the guys says, "Hey, did you hear so-and-so got fired?" And the other one says, "Yeah, I wonder what asshole they hired this time." So I just went on in the classroom, and I was getting at the teacher station getting things ready to go. Those two guys come in and stop dead at the doorway. I said, "Come on in, the asshole's here." I didn't have any problems with him after that. Them after that. Just last week, I had a situation. I caught a student who was doing a little bit of cheating of some sort, and he got a 0 on the assignment. I mean, it's laid out in the syllabus. And I said, if you do it again, all right, you're going to get an F for the course. He sends back an email saying, "I refuse your grade." And then started to tell me how I'm supposed to grade papers. Now, a lot of instruction, how many of you would just go ballistic at that point in time, right? Now, I didn't. What I did, I thought about that, and I just went back and I said, you know what? You can refuse all you want. Here's the situation. Here's what your choices are. Now, if you don't like it, you can contact the dean. I gave, Leroy's number and email address and that sort of thing. I was looking to see if he was going to apologize. And sure enough, he did. Okay? Sort of. So he did. So I cut him some slack because he did. And he made some changes on that. Now, going back to that student, the class where I took over, all right, I took over that class that first night. I'll never forget, right there in the front row was a guy who had been a friend of the instructor. And before class, the two of them had been out at a bar drinking, playing Ain't It Awful? Oh, ain't it awful? Oh, ain't it awful? And he was not just plowed. He was a nasty drunk. I mean, he was interrupting. He was making snide comments and things like that. And after about half an hour, I called a timeout. I said, let's take a break. Went out in the hallway, and I called the campus police. I said, come get this guy, all right? So the campus police officers show up, and I call him out, and I said, nobody comes into one of my classrooms and acts as they do as you have done tonight. You are done for the night. I suggest that you find a way home because of your current situation. You're welcome to come back next week, but you're not here for the rest of the evening. And another one's gone. He dropped. You don't have to put up with the disruptive student. I'm one of those crazy people you see out on the road on 2 wheels in funny colored jerseys and spandex. I know an old fat guy in spandex isn't a pretty sight, but I'm at the age where I really don't give a rip. All right. For a number of years, I did the MS 150, all right, where I was riding, and raising money and things like that. I was one of the top fundraisers for a number of years, and I was also on the planning committee where we were putting together the routes, planning everything out. We had 3 routes on the first day, 2 routes on the second day. 35 miles, short route, 75 miles, normal route, and then 100 miles, the century route. Then on the second day, it was 35 to 75 mile routes. We were having a hard time. Now, throughout the ride, okay, throughout the routes, we have about every 10 miles, what we call SAG stops. SAG, S-A-G, support and gear. That's where riders can stop, rest, refill water bottles, get something to eat. We had mechanics, things like that. Well, there was one SAG stop towards one of the last stops on the route, which is actually in Johnson County, that we were having a hard time getting volunteers. And so I put it to one of my classes. I said, who wants to earn a bunch of extra credit by giving up part of a Sunday and writing a short reflection paper? So I had about 5 students who volunteered. So on Sunday, I was in Lawrence. I got on my bike and hustled over to that stop, waiting for it. I wanted to get there before they did. And we got them trained up, as far as what they had to do and things like that. The reflection papers were fantastic. They loved the experience. They really got a kick out of doing some community service. They really enjoyed talking with the riders and why they were riding and who they were riding for. and then also some of the MS patients that I had a chance to meet. And so that it was such a learning experience for them. It was one of those things where they were starting to continue to do that. So if we can find new things for students to do, it's really important as far as their growth and development. Thing is, if you're going to ride with me, don't ride too close behind me. Several years ago, I was teaching a continuing ed class over here in Rainier. Started at 8 o'clock. We get about 20 minutes into the class. Student raises her hand and says, "Why do you have on 2 different shoes?" And my response was, "This is the result of your spouse still being asleep and you trying to dress by the light of your luminous style watch." All right? And it's one of those things where you just have to step back and laugh at yourself. We're going to make mistakes, and one of the things that's important is for students to see us as real people in some of the mistakes that we make. So, take a minute to laugh at yourself. Several weeks ago, I had a student who contacted me saying that she needed some extra time on a couple of assignments. Now, remember, I say no late work, okay, unless there's, a really significant thing. Needed some time on some extra assignments, the extra time on assignments. So why? Remember that I had to learn about why. She said she lived in Topeka. She was an online student. She lived in Topeka, and she had stopped at a car wash. She washed her car and everything, and then she was vacuuming out the car. It was real windy that day. While she's vacuuming out the car, a big gust of wind comes, hits the car door, and hits her in the head. She had a concussion. And I said, I've had all kinds of excuses, the dog in my homework type sort of thing. Never have I had my car gave me a concussion. Okay, so, there's a little humor in that. Some years ago, I was teaching when I was teaching at Rockhurst, I was doing an online summer class in the DO MBA program. Now, these are folks who are doing med school at KCU and then a master's in MBA in healthcare administration there at Rockhurst. And I got an email. Now, this semester, the summer semester, it was online because they were doing rotations. And there was one student who was doing a rotation as a Doctors Across Borders in Guatemala. I got an email from her saying, she needed some extra time as far as a couple of assignments. I said, why? Well, there was a volcanic eruption in Guatemala. It knocked out the power, internet access was really spotty, and she was also taking care of some patients. And I said, I've had all kinds of excuses, my dog ate my homework, that sort of thing. Never have I had a volcano ate my homework. Okay, I had to post that up in the faculty area. So you're going to have to find the humor in some of the things that happen. 2.5 years ago, June, my wife came home and found me unconscious on the floor. I was ambulanced to the hospital. A day or so later, they filleted me like a fish, took out a bunch of stuff, fixed some other stuff, and this sort of thing. I was in the hospital for about a week and a half. I had a couple of online classes going on. I feel I have a moral obligation to be there for my students. So there I was in the hospital bed with my laptop, going to town, making sure that everything was done, that, answered all the emails, did stuff with graded papers, things like that. I do wonder about some of the emails and discussion posts I made. That morphine feels good. So it's one of those things where over the past 20 years, I've had like 2 sick days. I do everything I can to make sure that I'm there for my students.
Okay, but HR doesn't want you to do that for the hospital, I'm just saying. Only about FMLA.
Finally got a smart ass remark, all right? Thank you. And it probably come from HR. Some of you may have seen this picture with the Halloween with the costume competition, okay? Some of you may have seen me walking around campus, with that outfit on, without the custom-made bass. And the thing is, I'm a big believer in not taking yourself too seriously, okay? There are so many people that are walking around in this world that have egos as big as this room and think they are God's gift to humanity or students or whatever it is. Nobody can handle, can take those people and what it is that they do. And so it's one of those things where I'm a big believer. Take the business seriously. Do not take yourself too seriously. Let students see a real person. My daughter is a Kansas City, Missouri police officer. Okay, she spent about 6 years in the hood, okay, working nights in East Patrol. And she is now a homicide detective and hostage negotiator. She insisted on coming today, so it's like, okay, you know, you have to do it. One of the things that I do at the end of every week when students are leaving is I say, stay out of jail. My daughter will arrest you. First thing I say when they come back after the weekend, did everybody stay out of jail? Okay, did everybody stay out of jail? Cool. So, I meant to embarrass you, Sarah. Several years ago, I was teaching an online class for Bellevue University, and one of the students in there was a director at a hospital there in Omaha. And I got an email from her husband saying, she's not going to be able to finish out the course. She just got her third DUI. And another one bites the dust. One of the things I do for all my classes is name tents like this. And then I'd take a wanted poster picture of all the students. I put together a sheet. That helps me to learn the names. And names are important to people. And so I tell them, if the name that's on that name tent is not what you want to be called, scratch it out and I'll change it. Because people want to be called certain things. You know, if your name's Robert, if it says Robert, you want to be called Bob, put Bob on there, you know. Well, I had one kid here several years ago who wanted to be a world-famous rapper. And he wanted his rap name on there. I put it on there, you know, let him live his fantasy. But about 3 weeks into the class, I got a call from his father saying, he's not going to be in class for the next 3 years because he's in prison. And another one gone. Things like that happen. This is my crew here. You see the old bald-headed fool, okay? And then my bride of 50 years as of this past September. And then my crew, that's you. Anybody who can put up with me for 50 years is an absolute saint, and Sarah and Susan is. And then the rest of my crew, 3 kids, 2 spouses, a mother-in-law, and 7 grandkids, all right? For us, the most important thing of all is family. We get together every Sunday, you know, for Sunday dinner. Everybody comes to Nana and Papa's house. The cousins love getting together. And I tell the students about all the things that we've been doing. I share all that with students. And I tell students, family is the most important thing around. A couple of weeks ago, I had a student who came to me at the beginning of class saying that she might need to leave early because her parents were traveling. They were out of town. And her little brother was in the nurse's office. I said, go. Don't leave him in the nurse's office. You go. You go take care of your little brother. Family first. A year or so ago, I had an online student sent me an email. You can tell when somebody is really hurting, okay? And the way they talk, the things they say, the way they write, really hurting. His sister had just committed suicide. And he was wondering what he needed to do. And I said, look, you have to take care of family and yourself right now. This is just a class. You take care of those people and yourself, because that's really the most important thing at this point in time. I got him in touch with our counselors, and over several weeks, I checked with him, see how he was doing. I sent him information from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, from her book on death and dying, and the stages of grief. And I also sent him suggestions on how to handle some of the grief. I'm a big believer that family has to come first. Now, again, we take care of the business, all right? We do everything we can. Thing is, our family has to come first. And I share silly things like this with the students, okay? Several weeks ago, my wife comes downstairs. She says, washer's broken, it's not spinning at all. I had a feeling, what it needed. So, I had to order the part, got it fixed, things like that. But what I do is I posted this, and I shared this with the students, where the poor washer just fell and died. But that crazy Dr. Ferguson, okay, and infinite knowledge, with the help of a few YouTube videos, got him all fixed up. And folks, you can see he's smiling. So I share things like this with students. That whole idea of family. This is one wall of my office at home. All right? My walls are covered. The grandkids will come to me and say, Papa, can we draw a picture for you? And I say, absolutely. I give them the paper and the markers and things like that. They draw the pictures. And then, that's all right, we're done.
Okay.
Appreciate it. And I say, and then, they say, here's a picture. Oh, this is absolutely beautiful. And then I give them tape, and I say, you put it up anywhere you want. And some of those pictures that you see up there have been up there for almost 10 years. I put them up, and my office is just covered, isn't it? Now, the paintings that you see there were from my grandmother. My grandmother was an artist, and most of the artwork, almost all the artwork in our house, are her paintings. Year or two ago, a student came to me, a single mom, came to me at the beginning of class early in the week. She said, my kindergarten daughter doesn't have school on Friday. I don't have anybody to watch her. Can I bring her to class? I said, absolutely. And so when she came, I had a name tent for her. I had markers, I had paper, and a snack. And so I'll tell you, she was just cute as could be. Okay, and she was so good and things. And at the end of class, she came up and handed me that picture. She was so proud of that picture. She gave it to me. And I told her about what I do with my grandkids. I said, but you know what, Victoria? My office here doesn't have any paintings. It doesn't have any pictures. Would you like to put it up? She said yes. So we went to my office. I gave her the tape, and that's where she put it. Earlier last semester, her mom and Victoria were in the business office. I was going by, I see them in the business office. I went in and I started talking with her. I said, Victoria, how you doing? We started talking. I said, do you remember that picture you made for me? She said, yeah. I said, it's still up on my wall. You want to see it? She said, yeah. And so she and her mom go to my office, and there it was. She was so excited that that picture was still there. Her mom was blown away. She said, I can't believe you kept that up there. I said, you don't understand. That was a gift that came from the heart. That means more to me than the other awards and recognition that you see up there. Family first. So many people walk around lamenting of what they don't have, and they wish things were better and things like that. Most people really haven't had a situation where for 20 years, it was me and the dog in my home office, okay? When I wasn't traveling. I was traveling quite a bit, but it was the dog and me as far as what was there. And to be able to come in and have the privilege of working with this crazy crew is absolutely fantastic. We get together, we laugh, we share stories, we support each other. appreciating what we have is really important. So many people are lamenting so many other things. Life's too short, folks. Be appreciative of what there is there. This was an article in October's Wall Street Journal. What the happy warrior in your office knows about getting ahead. And I don't care anything about getting ahead. All right? Your perpetually upbeat coworker stands out because so many others are grumpy or slacking off. Nobody likes a grumpy Gus or a negative Nancy or a Sam Slacker. They just suck all the oxygen out of the room. Happiness is chosen. We choose to be happy, or we choose to be sad, or whatever it is. Me, I choose happiness. When I come in the mornings, one of the first things I do is I stop by the business office, and I'm giving, Mary and Jillian a hard time, and we laugh and things like that. And I check my mailbox. What do I always say in my mailbox?
Nobody loves me.
There's never anything in my mailbox,
You
right?
need to check today.
Huh?
Which you do need to check today before you leave.
Oh, yeah.
I know you currently with that because there's never anything about mailbox.
It's one of those things, you're loved if you get mail, even if it's from your creditors, okay, with the bills. You know you're loved. And so nobody loves me. So it's one of those things where we can choose to be happy. We can choose to be upbeat. We can choose to be the person that others want to be around. I feel so privileged to have been a part of this organization. This has been an absolutely great ride. I have enjoyed the people. I've enjoyed the students. I've enjoyed the things that I've been asked to do. I don't even see it as work. All right? I enjoy most of the students. All right? The thing is, my personal mission is to make a positive difference in a person's life. At the end of the day, at the end of the week, I wonder, did I make a positive impact someplace, somehow? And if I could be remembered for one thing, it would be that I touched someone positively. And they remember that. As it says up there from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate everything that all of you have done, and I'm going to miss you. So thank you very much for everything here. Appreciate it. By the way, let me share something new. This is something that my daughter gave me last night.
Wiser words were never written on a t-shirt.
So thank you. Folks, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful holiday, and maybe see you another time.